Have you ever stopped and wondered just how much of your story was written before you even got a say in it? Yeah, we talk a lot about our environment, our choices, but what if our biology, in a way we never really expected, give us this powerful, hidden head start? Okay, get this. Scientists studied twins who were raised in completely different families. We're talking different cities, sometimes even different countries. And what they found was just astounding. These uncanny parallels. The same fears, same sense of humor, even ending up in the same jobs. Stories like twins naming their dogs the exact same thing without ever meeting, that's not some weird outlier. It's a stark example of just how deep our biological programming really runs. So, the twin example, it shows this incredibly powerful genetic link, right? But biology gave you something else too. Something based not on your genes, but on your context. A blueprint based on one single simple fact. When you were born. We usually think of birth order as, just a family thing. Who got the front seat in the car? Who had to share a room? But we're about to flip that idea on its head completely. We're going to look at it through the lens of survival. And here is the core idea of this whole explainer. For our ancestors, living in these small, vulnerable groups, your birth order wasn't a personality type. It assigned you a specific job that was critical to the group's survival. These weren't just labels, they were roles with real responsibilities, real training. And that training, believe it or not, is probably still running in your head today. So let's start with the first archetype, the leaders. These are the ones who showed up first and basically had to figure everything out from scratch. And as you're about to see, that early pressure, it forged something incredibly powerful. Just let that sink in for a second. 23 of the first 29 NASA astronauts were firstborns. That is not a coincidence. No way. It's the result of a pattern that started thousands of years ago, when the oldest child was handed responsibility, not because they asked for it, but simply because they were there first. And what's so fascinating is how these advantages all build on each other. Studies show firstborns tend to have a slightly higher IQ, not because of genetics, but because they get thousands of extra hours of undivided attention from their parents. Then a new sibling comes along and suddenly they become a teacher, which just sharpens their own thinking even more. This pattern produces leaders. It's exactly why we see them so heavily represented as presidents and CEOs. It all makes sense. But, and this is a big but, this early responsibility came with a price. Firstborns learn really early on that their value is tied to their performance. The pressure to achieve is just immense, and the very idea of asking for help can feel like an admission of defeat. It's a weight they've been carrying their entire lives. Now, this leadership pattern also applies to only children, and this is where we can really see the huge gap between popular myths and actual data. All those stereotypes about being spoiled and selfish, they just don't hold up. Decades of research show that only children are ambitious, high achievers who, just like firstborns, got the full investment of their parents' resources. But that total investment, well, it has its own cost. When you're the family's one shot, you don't just get their hopes, you get all of their fears too. And this creates this relentless internal drive, a voice in your head that is constantly pushing for a standard of perfection that is always, always just out of reach. All right, now for the ones everyone thinks they have figured out, middle children, the forgotten ones, right? Well, what if being overlooked wasn't a disadvantage at all? I mean, when you look at people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and Martin Luther King Jr., all middle children, you start to realize, there's something else going on here. This reframe right here is everything. Think about it. While the firstborn was getting all the attention and the youngest was getting all the leeway, the middle child was in the perfect spot to just observe, adapt, and learn how to navigate complex social structures without ever needing to rely on authority. This was their ancient job, the coalition keeper. In any small human group, conflict was a constant threat to survival. The group didn't need another boss. It needed a diplomat, someone who could see every angle and literally hold the group together. That person was the coalition keeper. That was the middle child's role. And that ancient training, it built an incredible modern toolkit. Because they had to look outside the family for validation, they built wider, more loyal social networks. They're experts in empathy and negotiation. Researchers even call them stealth leaders because they don't command a room with authority, they subtly shape it from within. But, of course, there is a shadow side to this incredible skill. The ability to see every single perspective can lead to a real struggle with your own identity. I mean, when you can argue any side, which side is truly yours? This can lead to a lot of indecisiveness and this feeling of being kind of undefined. Finally, we get to the baby of the family. By the time the youngest arrives, the rules of the game have totally changed. The parents are way more relaxed, the hierarchy is already set, and the old way of doing things is well established. And this creates the perfect environment for a disruptor. See, every group eventually needs someone to challenge the status quo when it stops working. That was the youngest job. Since they couldn't compete with size or experience, they learned a totally different kind of power: influence, charm, persuasion. They're way more likely to take risks and explore new ideas, which is why we see them overrepresented in creative fields, in comedy, you name it. But here's their challenge. When discipline isn't forced on you from a young age, building it yourself takes real, conscious effort. And when your primary tools are charm and humor, getting people to take you seriously and see you as credible, well, it can be an uphill battle even when you've absolutely earned it. Okay, so we've looked at the leader, the peacemaker, and the disruptor. We've seen how these ancient survival roles shaped a whole set of skills and, yeah, a set of costs that are probably still running in your life today. But the big question is, what do you do with that knowledge? This chart really puts it all together. You can see the patterns so clearly for each role. Firstborns were given the gift of leadership, but it came at the cost of potential burnout. Middles developed incredible empathy, but can struggle with indecisiveness. The youngest learn charm, but often have to fight for credibility. Just seeing your own pattern here, that's the first step. Ultimately, this isn't about putting you in a box, not at all. It's about giving you a map. Understanding the blueprint you were handed at birth gives you the power to consciously choose what you want to do with it, to lean into your natural strengths, and to deliberately work on the things that are more of a challenge. Your birth order shaped you, for sure, but it does not own you. That pattern is not your destiny. It's just your starting point. So the real question is, now that you can see the blueprint, what are you going to build?